felt I let him down. Every time I seen him, I thought, oh. But when Alec come, it was the world changes.
So what did he do then? What happened that meant that you suddenly felt more
I
comfortable?
think most of this, he takes you from thinking about winning and making sure you win. And that's what he did. And he's the best sports psychologist the world has ever seen. He understood what it took to win games of football and where you have to go to get the worst out of yourself sometimes to win the games of football. And sometimes you win the proud of it, but you'd have to do that to win and turn you into real competitors, real people who wanted to win everything.
He made me want to retire. Those were the words of one legend. But by the end, Gordon Strachan had every one of them in awe. How did this 5'6" Scotsman earn the love of football's toughest warriors and its smartest minds? These 7 legends all said the same thing. They didn't just respect him, they absolutely loved him. Gordon Strachan wasn't supposed to be great. He was too small. His temper was too big. He talked back to Sir Alex Ferguson when most players couldn't even look the man in the eye. He ate seaweed and bananas when the rest of football was eating steak and chips. He wore his hair spiky red and looked like he wanted to fight everyone he met. By every measure, he should have been forgotten as just another Scottish player with a lot of mouth and not enough height. But something else happened. Something that still baffles the biggest names in the game. Let's start with the man himself. Sir Alex Ferguson built a dynasty. He won 13 league titles. He conquered Europe. He made Manchester United into a global force that still dominates to this day. But when Ferguson talks about Gordon Strachan, his voice changes. The stories get longer. The respect gets deeper. Why? Because Ferguson saw something in Strachan that he didn't see in many other players. He saw cunning. He saw a sharp, tactical mind that could work around any opponent, no matter how much bigger they were. Strachan had a will to win that matched Ferguson's own. And that's saying something. Ferguson never had to imagine Strachan as a sycophant. He never had to wonder if Strachan would tell him the truth. When they clashed, and they clashed often, Strachan was one of the few players brave enough to argue back. He had the nerve to outmaneuver Ferguson off the pitch as well as on it. Most managers would have destroyed a player for that kind of defiance. Ferguson loved it. He loved it because he needed lieutenants who weren't afraid. He needed fighters. He found that in Strachan. The defining story of their relationship, the one that lives in football folklore, is the tea urn incident. During a European tie in Romania, Strachan wasn't playing the width Ferguson demanded on the right wing. In the dressing room at half-time, Ferguson unleashed his legendary fury. He demanded concentration. He demanded width. He demanded obedience. And Strachan answered with smart ripostes and caustic comments. Ferguson, in a fit of rage, swept a row of teacups off a table. In some versions of the story, he struck a massive tea urn made of iron. He nearly broke his hand on it. This wasn't a quiet conversation. This was war in a dressing room. But here's what matters. Strachan didn't crumble. He came out in the second half and proved his worth. Aberdeen recovered. They won the match. They won the tie. Strachan had the mental fortitude to withstand the full force of Ferguson's aggression and still perform at his best. That's when Ferguson's love became permanent. They had seen the worst of each other. They had survived it. They were combat veterans now. Ferguson would later reflect on those days with deep nostalgia, missing the era when players had the character to stand their ground against any manager, no matter how fierce. The culmination of their partnership was Aberdeen's victory over Real Madrid in the European Cup Winners' Cup final in 1983. Strachan was the creative fulcrum of that side. He provided the guile to complement the steel of Willie Miller and Alex McLeish. Without Strachan's wonderful ability and his fitness, Ferguson would later say, the Aberdeen miracle would not have happened. It's a remarkable compliment from a man who built an empire on the back of his own genius. Now, take Vinnie Jones. Vinnie Jones was known for one thing and one thing only: intimidation, the psycho of the crazy gang. A player who lived by aggression, a man who made other players fear him. On paper, Vinnie Jones and Gordon Strachan were polar opposites. Jones was physically imposing. Strachan was 5'6". Jones earned respect through physical presence. Strachan earned it through something else. And yet, They formed one of the most formidable partnerships Leeds United ever had. Vinnie Jones calls Strachan the wee man, and he calls him one of his favourite teammates. The core of Jones's admiration is simple but profound. Respect is not earned by words, but by deeds. To Jones, Strachan's decision to leave the glamour of Manchester United for the grit of the second division was the ultimate deed. He had already proven himself at the highest level. He could have stayed comfortable. Instead, he chose to rebuild a club from the bottom up. That's a different kind of courage. That's fearlessness. Jones redefines what hard actually means when he talks about Strachan. While Jones was physically imposing, he recognised a different kind of toughness in Strachan. He describes him as fearless. Seeing a 5'6" player demand the ball in tight spaces, dictate play against aggressive opponents, and lead by example was more inspiring to Jones than any physical confrontation. Strachan didn't try to change Jones. He utilised him. He recognised Jones's value as a disruptor and integrated him into a championship-winning unit. Jones admits he has a lot of admiration for the wee man, acknowledging that Strachan looked past the media caricature of Vinnie Jones to see the footballer and the man underneath. Now let's talk about Gary McAllister. McAllister arrived at Leeds to replace Vinnie Jones. He found in Strachan something that would change the rest of his career. Gary McAllister describes Strachan as a wonderful human being. That phrase moves beyond professional respect into personal affection. McAllister highlights Strachan's role as a pioneer of fitness and diet when English football was stuck in a beer and steak culture. Strachan advised McAllister on things alien to the game, massage and pressure points, diet and recovery methods that wouldn't become mainstream for another decade. Strachan's own diet was famous: seaweed and bananas, mixed into the banana mash. It sounds strange now. It sounded strange then, but McAllister understood. Strachan was teaching him that talent wasn't enough. The body had to be a temple. The mind had to be sharp. Recovery had to be treated as seriously as training itself. McAllister went on to win a treble with Liverpool in his mid-30s. He attributes his longevity, the extra decade he played at the highest level, directly to habits Strachan instilled in him at Leeds. Long before Arsène Wenger revolutionised English football nutrition, long before sports science became mainstream, Strachan pioneered these ideas. He was treating his body as a machine that could be optimised and extended. McAllister was his student and one of his greatest success stories. Paul Scholes is often cited by players like Xavi and Zidane as the greatest midfielder of his generation, one of the finest technical players ever to play the game. Yet before Scholes was the master of Old Trafford, he wanted to be Gordon Strachan. That's Strachan's power. Scholes admitted he wore his hair spiky, wanting it to look like Strachan's. On one day, Scholes took Strachan a tub of hair gel as a present. It's humanising. It reveals that before Scholes perfected his craft at Manchester United, he was a fan studying Strachan's movements, his tenacity, and his hairstyle. Strachan represented possibility for Scholes. In an era dominated by physical midfielders, Strachan proved that a small, technical player could dominate matches through intelligence and technique alone. He showed that size didn't matter if your mind was sharp enough and your feet were skilled enough. Strachan has reciprocated this love. He's called Scholes' Manchester United the best team he has ever seen. He's cited Scholes as one of the best coaches or players he's ever watched. The relationship is cyclic. The idol inspired the genius, and the genius validated the idol's legacy. Matt Le Tissier's relationship with Strachan is different. This is player and manager. Strachan took over Southampton when Le Tissier's career was winding down. The club was drifting, but Strachan's management of Le Tissier was masterfully handled with humour and honesty. Le Tissier recalls Strachan shouting from the touchline, "Matt, get yourself warmed up. I'm bringing you off." It highlights the rapport they shared. Strachan knew Le Tissier's fitness was fading, but respected his talent. Instead of humiliating him, Strachan used humour to diffuse the situation and allowed Le Tissier to maintain his dignity. The depth of their bond was revealed years later. Le Tissier, facing public backlash, revealed that Strachan reached out to him. Letitia stated that Strachan offered support just as the former Saints manager had done when Letitia retired early through injury. This speaks to Strachan's character. While the nippy-sweetie persona suggests prickliness, Letitia's testimony confirms that Strachan is fiercely loyal to his players. He stands by them when isolated. Strachan didn't necessarily endorse all views, but he supported the human being. There was a conflict between them, of course. Strachan's obsession with diet clashed with Letitia's infamous love for sausage rolls and burgers. Letitia joked about players who would not be seen dead eating Gordon Strachan's banana mash, but this conflict was never malicious. Strachan accepted Letitia for who he was, a maverick who couldn't be tamed by seaweed and bananas, but who could still win a match with a flick of his boot. That's acceptance. That's love. Kenny Dalglish and Gordon Strachan share the pantheon of Scottish football greats. Their relationship is marked by dry, biting humour. Dalglish has famously described Strachan as off his head. In Scottish vernacular, this is affection for someone with boundless energy. Dalglish respects Strachan's authenticity. He joked in a tribute that Strachan was one of the world's most laid-back men, a comment dripping with sarcasm that highlights just how high-strung Strachan actually is. Dalglish acknowledges Strachan as one of the best players Scotland's ever seen. For Dalglish, a man who won 3 European Cups with Liverpool, such praise validates Strachan's elite status. They shared the pitch at the 1982 and 1986 World Cups. Dalglish vividly remembers Strachan's iconic goal against West Germany in 1986 and his failed attempt to jump the advertising hoardings. Strachan later self-deprecatingly analysed that moment, noting he feared the moat behind the boards. This shared history cements their bond. They are peers. They came up together. They celebrated together. Scott Brown is different from all the others. Scott Brown is the protégé, the spiritual successor, the most paternal relationship Strachan had with any of these legends. Strachan signed Brown for Celtic from Hibernian, seeing a raw diamond amidst the aggression. Brown states unequivocally that Gordon has been one of the most influential people in his career. Gordon changed his life. Those are powerful words. Strachan's love for Brown was demonstrated through protection. When Brown was involved in controversies, police warnings, drinking sessions, or on-field discipline issues, Strachan stood in front of the media firing squad. He refused to condemn his player publicly. He stated he had had no complaints over his player's behaviour, even when the press demanded blood, even when everyone else was calling for punishment. This loyalty inspired total devotion. Brown retired from international football to prolong his club career. But when Strachan needed him for Scotland's World Cup qualification campaign, Brown reversed that decision instantly. He admitted he returned because he did not want to let Strachan down. That's the measure of Strachan's impact. Strachan sees himself in Brown. He described Brown as a real giant and a legend. Both players were combative, energetic, and often disliked by opposition fans. Strachan taught Brown how to channel that aggression into winning trophies. The Scott Brown who lifted 9 league titles in a row is a product of Strachan's mentorship. That's a legacy that goes beyond football. That's changing a life. So why do these 7 legends absolutely love Gordon Strachan? The answer lies in 4 core pillars of his character. The first is authenticity. Strachan is unapologetically himself. Whether arguing with Sir Alex Ferguson over tea urns or cracking jokes about his height, he is authentic. He doesn't put on a facade for cameras. The nippy sweetie is the real Gordon Strachan. In a world of media-trained robots, that authenticity is cherished. Dalglish and Letitia love him for his humour and lack of pretension. The second pillar is loyalty. Despite the prickly exterior, Strachan is deeply caring. McAllister and Letitia use language emphasising his humanity. He remembers the person behind the player. He reached out to Letitia during a scandal. He protected Brown during media storms. He gave McAllister the secrets to longevity. He gave Scholes a blueprint for success. This duty of care creates a bond that lasts decades. The third pillar is fearlessness. Jones and Ferguson respect the fighter. Strachan stood 5'6" but played like a giant. He went toe-to-toe with the hardest men in football and never took a backward step. He challenged the hardest managers. He refused to be bullied. This mental toughness earned the respect of the warriors of the game. The fourth pillar is innovation. McAllister and Scholes respect the professional. Strachan was ahead of his time regarding diet, fitness, and technique. He paved the way for the modern midfielder, the small, technical player who relies on brain power and fitness over brute strength. Scholes emulated him. McAllister learned from him. They saw the future in what Strachan was doing, and they followed his lead. Gordon Strachan's legacy is often obscured by his wit. He is too often remembered for the one-liner rather than the through ball, but the testimony of these 7 legends corrects the record. To Sir Alex Ferguson, he is the cunning winner who helped build the Aberdeen dynasty. To Vinnie Jones, he is the fearless captain who commanded respect through deeds. To Paul Scholes, he is the boyhood idol who proved that skill conquers size. To Matt Le Tissier, he is the compassionate manager who brought levity to the end of a career. To Gary McAllister, he is the fitness guru who defied time. To Kenny Dalglish, he is the peer who shared the glory of Scotland. And to Scott Brown, he is the mentor who changed a life. Collectively, these voices paint a portrait of a man who is much more than a nippy sweetie. Gordon Strachan is a footballing polymath, a disciplinarian with a sense of humour, a traditionalist with modern ideas, a fierce competitor with a gentle heart. It is this unique combination of contradictions that makes him not just respected, but absolutely loved. The 7 legends who knew him best didn't just admire him, they were transformed by him, and that transformation, that deep, lasting impact on the greatest players of his generation, is what defines his true legacy in the game.